Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It is the Razzball Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We're here in the middle of December, Gray, to talk about some of the happenings from the free agent signings, winter meetings, everything. There's been a good amount to talk about, and we haven't talked in a couple months. So, how you been, buddy?
I've been pretty good. I had a trip in November where I went to Paris. Parlez-vous français? Gay Paris. I went there in November, and then today, actually, as we're recording, I went to the DMV, which canceled out my entire trip to Paris. So I'm basically even for how wonderful my off season has been. I was up a lot, and now after the DMV, I'm leaving the table even.
Hey, sometimes that's all right. Sometimes breaking even is okay.
Yeah.
There's worse things to do, or the way that things happen. I get my stuff mailed in and auto renewed, so I don't go to the DMV unless every 10 years when I buy a new car, I guess, or something.
I could talk to you about 45 minutes about my DMV trip today, but you know what? I don't think people want to know, honestly.
No, we got a lot to talk about, so let's just jump into it. Obviously, the biggest signing of the offseason, Juan Soto going to the Mets, getting somewhere between $51 and $55 million, depending on the structure and whether he opts out and they bring him back. There's a whole bunch of things in the contract that doesn't really matter for us. Juan Soto goes to the Mets, though. Yankee Stadium for his, for any lefty is pretty ideal power wise. Mets aren't quite as nice, but he is still going to a strong offense. What are your thoughts about Juan Soto landing in New York on the other side?
Yeah. So I got a lot of thoughts. Actually, I had a good 20-second chuckle at Juan Soto went to the Mets. I believe it was, what is it, $765 million, right? That's the total prior to like all the contract stipulations, but it's like 765 million, and supposedly the Yankees offered 760 million, which is hilarious. He was like, you know what, I won $5 more million. That was basically like, I don't really like the Yankees. It's hard to look at any other way other than him purposely choosing the Mets over the Yankees, which honestly might be the first time we've ever said that. I don't know if that's something people say. It's really kind of weird. I was surprised because he seemed happy with the Yankees. My guess is, and this is totally a guess, I didn't read this, I didn't hear this, but I think Lindor really had a lot to do with it. I feel like him and Juan Soto are pretty close.
I think I actually did read that somewhere. So
yeah,
there's a little bit to that, I think.
Okay, yeah,
and I don't think there hasn't been anything official, but I've read a couple things where Soto didn't necessarily love Aaron Boone as well. Plus, he just wanted the max money. He's been very clear since he got his first ridiculous offer from the Nationals, and he was like, "No, I just want max money. I'm going to free agency. I'm not signing anywhere." I know it's only $5 million in theory, but again, he can opt out after 5 years. He makes an additional $5 million on top of what he's already making per year. So an extra $40 to $50 million is plus all the opt-outs and things he has. I mean, it's not insignificant, but yes, it is pretty humorous. And I'm sure plenty of Yankees fans are hurting out there.
I guess I guess you're right. I guess it's not an insignificant of a difference in the amounts. I feel like it's an insignificant amount when it's like, I would take $1 million if someone offered me $1 million, and if someone else said $1 million 1.1, I'd be like, yeah, I would take the 1.1. But if someone offered me 760 million and someone else said 765, I'd be like, well, does that really matter? I don't know. But anyway, that's it's kind of irrelevant for fantasy.
Can we move the Yankees to Miami like all good New Yorkers do in later in life? And then they get the tax break, and then the 760 is really kind of the same, you know?
That actually, honestly, that's not a bad idea, that like the Yankees and the Mets play in New York until each player reaches the age of 35, and then they go to the Marlins. that's actually, that might be something.
We might have something there.
It's like, Anthony Rizzo. Yeah, well, thanks for playing, but now you have to go to the Marlins. What do you mean? Yeah, you're 35. Sorry. It was fun. It was fun knowing you. He's actually probably not even 35 yet. Anyway, so yeah, the Marlins are their center fielder's Brett Gardner. Okay, anyway, Juan Soto for me doesn't really change no matter where he goes. I mean, maybe if he went to the Rockies, but that would have been a whole nother reason why I'd be laughing for 20 minutes if he went to the Rockies. I don't think Juan Soto really changes no matter where he is. I mean, he's going to be, I'm assuming, hitting second. I think if anything, this gives a boost to Lindor and Vientos, who are hitting on both sides of them. I don't think Juan Soto changes, though. Like, there's no reason why. I mean, the short porch was nice, I guess, sure. But I mean, Juan Soto can hit the ball out of any field or any park, and he's probably, like plus or minus 3 homers on 35 homers. He just came off a 41 homer season. So, chop 6 homers off of that for the short porch being gone. But still, like, 285, 100-ish runs, 110-ish RBIs, handful from anywhere from like probably 5 to 12 steals. If anything, I would think he might not run as much just because, like, the Mets just invested almost $800 million in him. So they might be like, we like you to stay on first and then go base to base. But I don't know. I mean, that's just me assuming something. I would guess though, Juan Soto is essentially what he's always been. I think in my write-up of him, I said that he's probably going to be around what he was in San Diego and not what he was in New York. Which is still fine. I mean, it's still an excellent season. In San Diego, he hit 35 homers, 97 runs, 109 RBIs, and hit 275. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I would expect, more or less. Maybe boost up the average a little bit because he, even as great as his eye is, he cut his strikeouts last year. So yeah, maybe he holds those strikeouts now going into his new park. Again, that was also, within the Yankee lineup. So that was, probably he was boosted a little bit by having Judge behind him. So maybe that's why strikeouts got cut. But yeah, more or less. I mean, Juan Soto, that's why he got the big money. I mean, he's going to be excellent no matter where he is. So yeah, I mean, if the Mets can curse Juan Soto, then there really is something. There's something we need to look into if the Mets curse Juan Soto. But it looks like he's going to be as good as he always is. I'm happy with him. I'm still drafting him confidently in like the top 10 overall.
All right. Let me ask you this. Would you rather have, and ADP is one thing right now, early ADP has him in the top 10, as you mentioned. He's currently like 7, 8, somewhere in that range. Would you rather have him or his teammate in New York, Francisco Lindor? He's going like double, like he's going in like the 15 range.
Well, I mean, if you're assuming, so if you're going by price, if it's like an auction and you can have like Lindor at say $33 and Soto's at $40, yeah, I would take Lindor at 33. But in a snake draft, I mean, it's kind of a matter of where you're sitting in the draft. So, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a moot point, but I would take Juan Soto at 7. I have no problem with that. I would also take Lindor at, 12 or something.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of my ranking things. I'm definitely going to have Lindor over Soto. I mean, from an average standpoint, kind of same. Power, honestly, kind of the same. Lindor is going to give you more stolen bases. Runs probably favoring Lindor. RBIs probably favoring Soto. I mean, give me an extra 5 to 10 stolen bases from Lindor. I don't know. I've always kind of I know why everybody loves Juan Soto and why he gets drafted so high, but in his career, he's not the greatest player for our game. I understand I'm not, he's getting paid because of what he does for real baseball, in which he is ridiculous. But for our game, I mean, the on base is nice. It gets him some more runs and RBIs, but it doesn't really do for us what it does for real baseball.
Yeah, no, I mean, fair. I can't argue with it. I think it's sort of splitting hairs because Lindor is not going to be that much more affordable in drafts. But yeah, I mean, I could probably make the case that like Lindor is a minus 25 points on average around, like I think Soto's got way more upside on his average. And Lindor doesn't really have as much upside on his average. So I think, Soto is at least 30 points on average. And, Lindor is going to be batting with,
yeah,
I mean, okay. Yeah. I mean, like 25 to 30, I think is fair for
275 to 288 last year, or 273 to 288. So 15 points.
I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, if you're taking both of us out of the equation, Steamer has Soto at 282 for next year, and he has Lindor at 257. So, I mean,
that's right.
It is what it is. But anyway, Lindor is going to be batting with, in theory, Tyrone Taylor, Francisco Alvarez, and Brett Beatty, on base. In theory, those guys don't really get on base. So, Lindor is going to have probably less RBIs than Soto's going to have runs. Like if you're saying like Juan Soto is going to have less runs than Lindor, that's true. But Lindor is going to have a lot less RBIs than Soto's going to have runs. Probably. I mean, counting stats are hard to judge. But I mean, there is a case to be made that Soto is worth a bit more than Lindor. But again, they're super close. I mean, I don't dislike Lindor at all.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I get the average point. There's definitely some upside with Soto that doesn't exist with Lindor. That being said, we haven't really seen it in 3 years. The average, he's really just zoned in on the on base, and I don't know that I really expect him to hit a 330 average at any point anymore. But yeah, I mean, they're both great players. I'm just saying I probably won't have a lot of shares of Juan Soto because somebody is going to take him before I do. And that's generally how it goes. I know if we look at kind of the historical player rater, Lindor beats Soto pretty much every year. For whatever reason, Soto's not showing up on the current year player rater right now.
He was third overall, right behind, so he beat him right behind Judge. Yeah, he's not on there. He's not. Juan Soto's not on the player rater right now because he was a free agent. So free agents were taken off, and they'll go back on at some point in the near future.
Yeah, that's with the 128 runs, and I just don't know if that's happening without Aaron Judge.
No, it's not. No, no, totally. Yeah, no, it's totally fair. I mean, if I were to say like Juan Soto, I'd take Juan Soto at 10 overall and Lindor at 12 overall. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, really. I mean, they're both solid. I like them both. I think probably Soto has like, this amorphous sort of quote unquote upside that may or may not actually exist, where Lindor, like you're right. I mean, Lindor, the fact that he throws in, 25 plus steals makes a huge difference for fantasy value. So yeah, they're close.
They are. And I think it's probably more that I'm going to be down on Soto than like my Lindor ranking is going to be out of this world or something. But let's move over to the next big signing, which is Max Fried. He's heading off to the Yankees. They lost out on Soto and then found somewhere else to dump a ton of money. I know you hate Max Fried. What do you feel about him now in pinstripes?
So I
really
do
hate him.
Yeah, so I do have like, definitely some bias here. I do hate Max Fried. It is true. I just hate that his arm seems to be an issue. Like it's like between Garrett Cole, Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, and actually just between those three, they have like one good working elbow tendon between like three guys. I mean, it's like, and Max Fried, I mean, this is such a move where it's like you just got dumped by a girl after like 2 years of dating, and then you meet a new girl and you propose to her in 2 weeks. Like, this is like, it doesn't, like the fact that they went from Juan Soto to Max Fried with 8 years, so much money, like 200. I know the Yankees got money. They're printing money there. So I'm like not really worried about where the money's coming from. Like, I don't really care, to be honest, about how much, but it's still like 8 years. It's crazy. Anyway, that's on them, man. That feels like an overpay just because they lost Juan Soto, but who knows? And you called it. I don't like Max Fried. I just worry about his arm more than anything. I mean, last year he did throw 174 in a third inning. So, it's like, what's the worry? I guess he's proven that he can throw for basically a full season. As full of season as anyone, really. I mean, 175 innings is basically a full season for a starter now. So it's really hard for me to be completely against him on the health thing. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. His ground balls are good. He should play fine in Yankee Stadium. His walks were up a little bit last year. His strikeouts were down, but is nothing really. I mean, if you're in on Max Fried, I think you're in on him as a number 2 starter for fantasy. And I don't want to pay that for an 8.5 K per 9 and a 3 walk rate, which he was last year. Even if the ratios were good, and they were, like his whip was a little bit 116 on the whip, but the ERA was 325. So, I mean, it wasn't like he was bad last year, but if you're like looking at Max Fried and he's going as a number 2 fantasy starter, I think I would go for like a Zach Eflin or something, like 20 starters later. I feel like there's better options when it comes to starting pitching. Like if I'm going for a pitcher who's going around where Max Fried is going, I want a guy who's got no worries about his arm, solid strikeouts, better command. Like that Fried command last year wasn't even that good. Like I would go for a guy who's going after him, like a Brian Wu. Like I would go for that over Max Fried. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I'm more against him for fantasy than anything. Like I don't really more power to him if he throws like 200 innings and wins 20 games and has a 3.15 ERA. Great, more power to him. I'm fine with it. I'm just not drafting him.
I mean, it's fair. You have those guys that you don't like, and it's just the way that it is. I do think he's probably a little bit high in the ADP right now. I think that'll kind of settle out and he'll drop a little bit, but I don't mind him. I didn't mind him last year, and it worked out fine. I know that there is, the lingering is the mystery elbow thing, and is it going to flare up? I mean, that could happen to any pitcher at any given time. I just he pitched 174 last year. I'm not overly I'm concerned, but it's going to reflect in the ranking. Like if he wasn't showing that, he'd be 30 spots higher. So it's already kind of reflecting in there. But I also expect him to drop a little bit as things settle.
Would he
ADP right
though?
now is
I mean,
very
would
inconsistent.
he though be higher with an 8.5K per nine and a 3 walk per nine? I mean, would he be higher? Because I mean, he's really getting by on like what he's done prior years.
Logan Webb is going in that area, and that's basically Logan Webb.
Yeah, I mean, Logan Webb's been better for I don't know. I mean, I think Max Fried's getting by on like what he did prior seasons a little bit. And now the Yankee inflation is gonna hurt him as well.
Maybe it doesn't always work with pitchers, but it could.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, you're in. I'm out. Let's move on.
Right. Let's move over. Jake Berger is moving teams. He's heading to Texas. They sent away Max Acosta, Shedry Vargas, and Brian Mendoza in the deal.
Who? Anyway.
Anyways, the Marlins get a bunch of prospects because that's what the Marlins do, and they trade away anybody capable of doing anything in their lineup. So that's what happened. Jake Berger, who hit 20 home runs, 68, 76, and hit 250 last year. I mean, he's a guy who hits the ball pretty hard. Are you worried about him moving? I mean, there's not really a worse park than Miami.
Yeah. Would you Loan Depot? Is that what they are? I don't know what they are at this point. I don't know what they are either. Would you be more excited about the Marlins if they field the team that they're currently looking to field, or if they got the Yankees and Mets 35 and older guys? What would you be more excited to see? I think Jake Berger before this, I'm hoping this doesn't exactly put any shine on him. I think this guy is like currently, at least, I feel like he's a little bit underrated in the in ADP. I was looking at him real strongly. I like Berger a lot. I think he's probably not much more than a 30 homer, 250 hitter, which I mean, not much different than like Matt Olson if you're looking at just last year, right? I mean, it's a little bit different if Matt Olson gets back to where he was, but if he doesn't get back to where he was, it's like, or thinking of another guy who's actually a free agent right now as we record this, like Christian Walker or Jake Berger. I mean, these guys. Like, I like Jake Berger a lot. Maybe I like him more than others, or maybe I like him the same. I don't know, but I'm really kind of like, I'm hoping his ADP stays where it is, which is like, pretty late. I want to say it's like in the, what is it, like the 120s? It was at least. I like him. I think he's probably a little bit underrated. Maybe because he was on the Marlins, so that's why he was a little bit lower in ADP. And now that he gets traded to the Rangers, people might think he's going to get more counting stats, so maybe that boosts him a little bit. But as long as it doesn't boost him into like the top 75 overall, which it won't, is my guess, he's going to be value. I think Jake Berger probably, I don't know, he's likely, you're looking at like maybe top 10 to top 12 first baseman. And yeah, I don't think anyone really thinks of Jake Berger like that. So I'm in. I like Jake Berger. This move for me doesn't do a ton. I don't think it's really going to like boost him that much in value, except for, maybe the runs and RBIs, because like you said, you can't do much worse than the Marlins. So yeah, I think he looks pretty solid. I would say, maybe 75-ish runs, 30 homers, 85-ish RBIs, 250 average, no real speed to speak of, but that's fine. I mean, he's a corner man. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Rangers don't steal bases anyway. So
True.
Same. Yeah, no, I like it. I think if you're looking for like a power bat in that area, he's definitely a great value right around there. And you're starting to run out of, non 220, 30 home run guys not too far after that point. So, you got to grab it while you can. Let's move on. Garrett Crochet is moving, and he's got to be thanking his lucky stars. He's moving from one set of socks to the other, going from white to red. They got a bunch of prospects: Kyle Teal, Brady Montgomery, Chase Meadroth, Wickelman Gonzalez. But for our purposes, Garrett Crochet, really the only one that matters here. He was really great for the first half last year, really bad for the second half last year. What are your thoughts on Garrett Crochet? Was it just the overall collapse of the White Sox? Was it him kind of going, big innings increase? What's your thoughts?
Okay, so by the time people listen to this, they will probably have read what my write-up on Crochet. But my basic thoughts are, which I'll go into maybe more in depth in my write-up, but it's kind of interesting how he was really good for strikeouts and his command. I mean, he was really excellent, like probably top 3 in the league for just those peripherals, and which is odd is like he got hit really hard, like the hard hit contact, the hard contact, and also the barrels on him were pretty bad. So it's kind of interesting that like he was able to fool people so dramatically with the strikeouts, but also when people made contact, they made some really big time contact. So my one really serious sort of hesitation on him is going to be, where is the contact, that hard contact, is it going to go against the wall? If people are, if righties are pulling it off the monster, it could hurt his BABIP. His BABIP was already high, which is another symptom of the hard contact. So if hitters are taking them off the wall a lot, that could potentially hurt him again with hard contact. So I'm bullish in a respect because, I mean, the strikeouts and walks don't get much better. I mean, his numbers look like vintage. Another guy who went from the White Sox to the Red Sox, Chris Sale. Crochet's peripherals look like vintage Sale. Now, hopefully we don't have to wait 10 years for Crochet to go to the Braves to actually be good. But I mean, Crochet's numbers, like they're more or less like he looks like an ace. Like it's hard to argue with, like, I see him going as high as like top 5 starters off the board. And I don't have him that high. My rankings are coming out on Patreon actually as we speak, but I don't have Crochet as high as that. I have him a little bit off of like that where his ADP is. So his ADP is super high, and I get it because of the strikeouts and walks, and like that should sort of like, that could easily roll into a 2.5 ERA and just like a Cy Young type year. And now that he's on the Red Sox, you add in the wins that weren't there on the White Sox, he could be looking at like, Cy Young year. Absolutely. I worry a little bit about the hard contact, like I said. So that's why I'm not completely off of him. And people will see this in my rankings when, or they have seen it with the Patreon, but I'm not completely off of them, but I'm hedged a little bit off of like where I think like people are taking him. Like I'm not as high as the highest people on him. I'm a little bit off of that, but I'm also not a guy who takes a starter in the top, 40-ish overall. So I'm probably, I might not get Crochet. I don't necessarily hate him though. So, it's like, it's a little bit of a hedge, but I feel like that's where he is for me right now because there's no Like, there's no rhyme or reason why he should have been hit as hard as he was. And he was hit really hard. And you mentioned also the second half and like the innings jump from like he had 25 innings, I believe, in 2023, and then 146 innings last year when the White Sox just dragged. I mean, they really ran him ragged. So yeah, again, the innings jump, it's just little things that I'm like, I mean, he could come out and be amazing, but I can't get behind like, a top 5 starter for me. He is not, but a top 10? Sure. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, his price is just a little too high for me as well. As you mentioned, he's like a top 5, top 6 starter. If we got him down to the 10 to 15 range, I'd be in. Watching him pitch in the first half was the saving grace of watching any White Sox game. Really, is the only White Sox game you could watch was when he was on the mound. But again, there's some question marks around the innings jump. The change in field is it's bad. Boston is always bad for just the BABIP luck is going to be so much harder to come by in Boston. So I like him, but if his draft cost stays as a top 5, 6 starter, I'm gonna have to watch him be great on somebody else's team.
Yeah.
Moving on to another kind of surprising trade, Andres Gimenez is moving to the Blue Jays in a trade for Nick Mitchell and Spencer Horowitz. Andres Gimenez has been a very solid, if not unspectacular second baseman, but that's kind of how second base goes. He had 30 stolen bases, 9 home runs, 64, 63, and had a 252 average. Last year, he heads out over to Toronto. What are your thoughts in regards to this move?
Yeah, I think Gimenez is actually a little bit underrated for as far as like for fantasy. He actually, I don't really pay attention to like Gold Gloves and stuff because the voting on that is a little wonky. But anyway, like he's won a few Gold Gloves. He looks like a solid addition for the Jays, but I don't know. I get the sense that like the guards, the fans of the Guardians were happy to see him go, and I didn't really get a sense that the Jays fans were happy to get him. So that's why I'm like under the assumption that it feels like Gimenez is a little bit underrated. But for fantasy, I think he's definitely underrated. I mean, a 12 homer, 30 steal, 250 hitter at second base. Second base is a wasteland. It's a solid line for a second baseman. So yeah, I like Gimenez. I'm doing a draft right now with some Razzball people, and I just drafted Gimenez. I like him.
All right, nice. I mean, he is for second base. There's a lot worse things you could do than Andres Gimenez. So certainly there's some value there. Just there was some expectation when he first came up because he had such a great first season that he might be a little bit more. Just the power has just dropped. I don't know what happened to the power grade from the first season. Maybe it was just the right combination of juice ball for him, but basically cut in half the home runs from his first full season to now. But yeah, still very useful. I don't think Cleveland, Toronto really changes anything. And yeah, I don't get a feeling like anybody's overly excited about this, even though this is a huge hole like plugger for the Blue Jays, where second base was just a wasteland for them last year as they just cycled in, Davis, Schneider, and whoever else they could find to play there. So I think it's a good fit for them. Let's move over to Colorado, where they added Thairo Estrada. Anybody that goes to Colorado has to become at least a little bit more interesting, right? In theory.
Yeah, no. I mean, I've been roped in on the Colorado's going to fix a guy a few times before. I'm still feeling the effects of the Sam Hilliard, Josh Rutledge. I still am kind of interested in Chris Bryant. I mean, the Rockies definitely have fooled me quite a few times. But yeah, I mean, as long as he stays on the field, Estrada, that is, not Bryant. don't get me wrong. Bryant is not staying on the field. If Estrada can stay on the field, Colorado, much like Fenway, Coors helps with BABIP, so that should straighten out Estrada's BABIP a bit. It should help him. He had 9 homers last year and only 364 at bats. If he can get 500 plus at bats, that should get up to it should bring him to around 15 homers in Coors, you would think. He has 20 plus steal speed, 15, 22, 260. Again, at second base, it's not bad. I mean, that isn't that far off from what I would expect from Andres Gimenez. Now, with Estrada, he's had 2 solid seasons before. So those aren't like pie in the sky numbers. Like he had 2022 and 2023 were both years where he had 14 homers and he stole 21 bags one year and 23 bags the other year and hit 260 and 271 respectively. So he's had solid years. Like he had a terrible year last year, but he's only 29 years old. Going to Coors, it should help. I mean, there's absolutely a case here where the Rockies go out and get Brandon Drury and Bud Black benches Estrada. Drury. I mean, there is. Let's be honest. Bud Black may be like, you know what? Let's bring Brian Dozier out of retirement. I mean, anything is possible with Bud Black. But I think Estrada is really solid if he gets 500 at bats. I like him. I'm in.
Yeah, I mean there is no telling exactly what will happen with Bud Black in Colorado, so there's always that concern. But as long as they don't bring Brian Roberts out of retirement, it'll be okay. Yeah, I mean I like the move. Colorado is a good place for Estrada. He should be able to get it back on track and bounce back after what was a injury, but also just kind of a tough season for him. Yeah. Let's talk about a couple of other Mets signings. They brought in a couple of arms, Frankie Montas and Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes once elite closer, then not so elite closer. Frankie Montas, he's had seasons here and there. That's about as good as I can do for Frankie Montas.
Yeah, no, I think Clay Holmes and Frankie Montas, they're going to be they'll be a interesting case study because it'll be whether or not the Sean Manaea and Luis Severino of 2023 or 2024, excuse me, the Mets quote unquote fixing of them. If they can do that with Holmes and Montas, then it's like, oh wow, everyone. then from like 2025 on, it'll be like, who did the Mets get? They got Nick Martinez. I'm in. Let's go. I love it. Give me whoever the Mets get is going to be amazing in 2025 if we can get Clay Holmes and Frankie Montas over the hump, because it's gonna be a challenge for Montas. I would say he's probably gonna be more of a challenge than Clay Holmes because with Frankie Montas, like his stuff is decent, but it's like Brad Pitt playing Billy Bean in Moneyball. If it's like the paraphrase, it's like if Montas was a good pitcher, why doesn't he pitch good? There's definitely something that could be there, but man, we have not seen a lot of it from Montas. I mean, there's definitely been moments where he's looked solid, but those moments have been few and far between. And coming off of the Brewers, especially, the Brewers are a team that really does well with their pitching. So it's like if the Mets can figure out Montas and the Brewers couldn't, then it's like, whoa, okay, there's really something there. But I don't trust it. I'm not putting my faith in Frankie Montas. Now with Clay Holmes, I'm a little bit more optimistic because like he has been solid in the past for stretches. Now he wants to be a starter, and the Mets sound like they're going to let him be a starter. That's, until the Mets sign Corbin Burns or someone. But yeah, I mean, as of right now, Clay Holmes is going to be a starter. And I'm interested. I mean, to a certain extent, I'm not like drafting him before like the top 250 overall are off the board. But I mean, I would definitely take a flyer on Clay Holmes in a deep enough league, probably as like, maybe a number 6 to number 7 starter in a 12 to 15 team league. So yeah, I mean, that's not nothing. I would be interested in seeing, if he can throw more than, he's thrown 63 innings 3 years in a row now. So if he's able to throw 110 plus innings, I mean, is his arm going to fall off? What happens? What happens when he gets to 111 innings? Is that when his elbow just disintegrates? I don't know. But I'm interested to a certain extent with Clay Holmes. Montas, I'm a little bit less so.
Yeah, I will say for Montas's sake, and I'm not really in on him either. I think they're both kind of late flyers. Although I do think there's a little bit more just intrigue with Clay Holmes because we have seen him be an elite closer. Maybe that can translate. Maybe they can fix him. But the saving grace on Montas, with him being such a fly ball oriented pitcher, when he's really struggled has been in terrible fly ball parks. New York, Cincinnati, Milwaukee. These are not places that a fly ball pitcher should be pitching in. If we're just like somebody in the front office messed up bringing him in, to be completely honest. Moving into New York, Mets instead of the Yankees, like that might actually be okay because there is outfield room for him to use. I'm not saying I think he gets back to 2.63. 1-1, that his magical season that we're never going to see again. But I could see him being like a useful streamer and maybe even somebody you roster and hold on to for deeper leagues if the fly balls don't leave the park as much. It could help him kind of get that under control.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, let's move over to San Francisco, where they signed WIlly Adames for a ridiculous amount of money, Gray. I saw the number and I was like, really? That we talking about the same? I mean, 182 million for WIlly Adames. This is the WIlly Adames who was essentially like demoted a year ago in 2023 at time. Like, what is going on here?
I don't know. I think in my write-up I said something like if it's like the old saying goes, like if you don't know who the sucker at the table is, it's you. I think the Giants might have been the sucker here, man. I mean, this is so clearly him coming off of a career year. Like it's like you can't look at his stats other than and come away with the conclusion that was a career year, other than like unless you have one eye closed. I don't know. Maybe if you have depth perception problem. I mean, it's so obvious. If you're looking at his numbers, you're like, that's a career year, bro. That's obviously a career year. So I looked up. I was curious with his fly ball rate. So his fly ball rate is 49.8%. And that immediately jumped out to me as being like really high, like incredibly high. So I went back and I looked at like from 2000, I believe from the year 2000 to last year, his fly ball rate and his BABIP, which was 297. So if you know anything about like, BABIP and fly ball rate, like if you're hitting a lot of fly balls, you're not going to have a great BABIP. So both of those numbers jumped out at me. So I went back and I looked, and I believe there was only two guys who had a better two guys who had a BABIP over 300, and WIlly Adames was at 297. One guy was Brandon Moss, and another guy was Johnny Gomes. I'm not saying WIlly Adames is those guys necessarily, But those guys, when they had those big BABIPs, those years, those were also career years for them. I mean, this is so clearly a career year for WIlly Adames. I don't know what I mean, I feel like this was a little bit like Buster Posey was like, getting used to his new office, and he was like, he got a message that Brandon Crawford was retiring, and he's like, he was great when I played with him. I need to go get a great shortstop. Who's the number one shortstop? I'm not sure Buster Posey's going to be the best front office guy, is what I'm saying. I don't know. So anyway, WIlly Adames, I mean, I think I have his projections at like 27 homers, 12 steals, 235 average, I think, is where I'm at with him, somewhere around there, which is, I mean, it's fine, but he's probably a little bit overrated in drafts. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of his move to San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good parks change going from Milwaukee to San Francisco. As you mentioned, I mean, just a career year in regards to everything: power, stolen bases, average, like everything. Like it's just baffling that a professional organization in baseball, the right sport and everything, would pay a guy till his age 36 season who has extreme fly ball and contact issue.
I mean, he is like, I know, like I'm saying what I think he's going to do for 2025 and how I'm a little bit down on him in 2025. But you bring up a good point. Like, imagine him in like 3 years. He's going to be terrible. He's going to
imagine him in 5 years when they still have 3 more years on the deal left.
I know, like in 3 years, it's going to be like a 50% fly ball rate. His BABIP's going to fall to like 260, and he's going to be hitting 215, and people are going to be like, man, he's only got 5 more years this contract.
There's the scene in Major League 2 where Wesley Snipes' character is just launching fly balls to the warning track every game. That's what it's going to feel like. It might even be this year. Like, he may just be a warning track like guy in San Francisco.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, it's baffling. It was a baffling signing. I really think Buster Posey is in over his head. Anyway, let's move on.
Let's move on to one that makes complete sense, because why not? I mean, why not spend more money? I mean, just why not? The Dodgers, Blake Snell. They also brought in Michael Conforto and Giovanny Gallegos, but Blake Snell really the headliner here, obviously. I mean, I remember like 2 years ago, we were talking about all the arms and young arm talent that the Dodgers had. I guess they've just decided to say, screw all those guys.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think it's more than just their arm talent. I don't think the Dodgers actually can develop a player. I'm not convinced. I'm not really convinced. Like, Andy Pages is supposed to be good. I mean, he was okay, but like Outman was supposed to be good. Miguel Vargas, I mean, Keber Ruiz, Josiah Gray. I mean,
Austin Barnes,
Gavin Lux. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know if the Dodgers can develop a player, which, when you're spending $1.2 billion of 2055's money, who cares? Like, I got money to blow for 2055. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go out this weekend. I'm gonna go get a Porsche, and I'm gonna be like, yeah, charge it to me in 30 years. Goodbye. Goodbye. Yeah, I was looking at Blake Snell after this signing, and I was kind of surprised at how much I liked them. Now, you got the Dodgers, who are obviously going to be at a 6-man rotation for most of the season, depending on how the health of their players. So Ohtani's probably good for about maybe 130, 140 innings. There's other guys. I mean, I'm not going to go through their whole rotation, but Blake Snell, if you're putting him down for, say, 130 innings of 11 11.5 to 12 K per nine. And like the last 3 years and 4 of the last 5 years, he's had a really solid ERA. Obviously, 2023 was really great with the Cy Young year. But last year, he had a 3.12 ERA with a 12.6 K per nine, a walk rate that was under 4, which for him is good. I'm surprised at how much I kind of like Snell in this situation. Like the win should be there. The wins at he was, only 5 wins last year, but on the Dodgers, you got to figure he's going to win at least 12 games. 12 games with those ratios. And his price in drafts isn't really, I mean, it could get inflated now because of the Dodgers, but as of right now, his price in drafts really isn't that bad. So I don't know. I'm actually kind of liking Blake Snell a little bit. If your expectations are for 130 innings versus like 170 innings.
Yeah, I mean, Blake Snell, when he's on the mound, is been great the last 3 seasons. It is really just an innings thing, and again, they're going to be in a 6-man rotation for some of the season. We thought they'd be in a 6-man last year, and they ended up being like a 3-man rotation at one point. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. But I mean, there's certainly some innings limitations. He's never thrown 200. I mean, I don't really expect him to get there. If he didn't do it in San Diego, he's not going to do it. For the Dodgers, who don't throw anybody 200 anymore. So, yeah, I mean, I really like the signing. I could definitely see him being, my staff's ace, sitting where he's going currently if the price doesn't go up with the signing too much. And I definitely will take him over a few people going ahead of him. I'm not going to, say everybody, but, guys like Jacob deGrom, Chris Sale, I'll take Blake Snell over both of them. I know what Chris Sale did last year, but just still don't really trust it. And I don't understand Jacob deGrom's price at all.
I'm with you 100%. Like I said, I have I started releasing the rankings with on the Patreon, and like I said, I'm with you 100% with the deGrom thing. I'm like, I talk about this in the rankings, but it's like deGrom is going where? He's 30. He's a third. Like you're hoping for 75 innings. You're probably going to get 35 innings. Like if you're being realistic, right? I mean, and Chris Sale is another guy who I don't understand his price currently. Like, anyway, we'll talk more about that in the new year. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, we'll get into rankings at some point in January, but for now we are going to move on. I guess real quick, do you have anything to say about Conforto or Gallegos?
No, because I think Conforto is going to end up in a platoon role if they re-sign Teoscar, or I don't believe the Dodgers are going to go into the season with Conforto having a full-time job. So
full-time job.
We can move.
All right, moving on then. We talked about Spencer Horowitz. He was involved in the Blue Jays deal, and then he also get shipped to. I'm trying to follow the line here. He is now in
Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Yes.
So Horwitz went for Gimenez. He went to Cleveland, and I believe I said something. I said something on social media about like that's a terrible trade for the Guardians, and everyone was like, "No, Horwitz is great. Come on, what are you talking about, man?" And then literally within like an hour, Horwitz got traded to the Pirates. I mean, come on. Like, seriously, like, let's be realistic here. Horowitz is, and is whatever Horowitz is for real baseball, I mean, for fantasy, he's really just, he's a placeholder if he gets hot during the season. Like, he's not even draftable in most leagues. So, yeah, whatever on Horowitz. Actually on the other end, who the Guardians did get from Pittsburgh is a little bit interesting as far as Ortiz goes. I don't know. I mean, I had to dig in more with Luis Ortiz, but I'm kind of interested. I mean, he had a he had a decent year last year for I mean, it wasn't bad. It's not like amazing. It's still like, he gets like barely a 7K per 9. Like, it's not like he's going to be an ace, but there might be something there for a streamer in 12-team leagues. And then maybe if you need an innings eater in like a 15-team league, Ortiz might be something. But yeah, I mean, not a little bit interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely had a little bit of good luck last year. But yeah, I mean, he could be interesting. Kind of like he could, if things go right, he could kind of be like the replacement Marcus Stroman.
Yeah,
solid ERA, not gonna ever really get you a lot of Ks, but just a solid guy to run out in the right matchups.
Yeah, I mean, think about like if a best case scenario is like what the Mets got from like Quintana or something. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Yimi Garcia, he's back to the Blue Jays. There's nothing really to talk about there since he's going back. Just wanted to mention it. And I didn't put a lot of people who are going back to their teams on this. So if they're going back, I mean, we'll talk about them when we get to the rankings. Alex Cobb heading to Detroit. Alex Cobb had the whole changed his throwing mechanics and added some velocity. That happened a couple years ago, and then we kind of saw some of those dividends last year, but then he only threw 16 innings. So, I mean, where are your thoughts on Alex Cobb? I've always low-key been a fan. The changeup's always been nice. Just never really put together.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind him if the matchup's right. I don't, coming out of a draft, I can't imagine he's going to really be taken. Even in 15-team leagues, I would imagine he's basically AL only at this point. But for an AL only flyer, man, maybe. I mean, he's always had decent ratios. He's just, recently he's had a hard time staying on the field, and he just doesn't really have much upside. Like, his strikeouts are pretty blah. So, at best, he's an AL only guy for innings and potentially ratios, and at worst, maybe a streamer if the matchup's good.
Yeah, I mean, that feels about right. I mean, there's nothing overly exciting. I mean, I guess there's just a streamer. I mean, that's what the numbers have always kind of looked like since his initial injury time, really. Just never really got back on track, unfortunately. And I think there's some other starters in Detroit I'd rather take a shot on behind him, actually. Maybe not ADP wise, but in rotation, and Casey Mize and Jackson Jobe. Jordan Romano moves over to the Phillies. Former elite closer, definitely had his issues last year. 6.59 ERA last year in Toronto. Was drafted as one of the safe closers. He was not. How do you feel about this adjustment?
Romano in Philly, so Philly becomes wit cheese. I'm doing. You can watch it on YouTube. I'm congratulating myself. Yeah, I think Romano could be interesting if he's healthy. I agree that there's some concerns there because like the Jays non-tendered him. So, what do the Jays know? And the Phillies, their bullpen has always sort of been like throw it all against the wall and see what happens. That's been the Phillies' MO for a while now, that they're just like, let's see what happens with, Jeff Hoffman, Jainmar Gomez, Sir Anthony Dominguez. I mean, it's just like it's all over the map with the Phillies kind of in their bullpen. They just sort of like try and make something work. But yeah, I don't know. I actually drafted Romano in one league. I think I got a little. I might have went a little too crazy going for him. I did a little. I went a little high on him, but yeah.
Was it after 250?
Yeah, no.
Okay. So yeah, maybe.
It should have been.
I think I know who you are, Greg, because I could probably find his ADP low point, and that's
Yeah.
probably you.
Yeah, I think when you set the high mark for Jordan Romano, that's when you have to start thinking about maybe I shouldn't have set my my thing to auto draft one round.
All right, let's move over to another closer or former closer, maybe closer. Aroldis Chapman moving over to Boston. I don't know. Do you think he? I mean, Liam Hendricks is there. Do you think he's the closer?
I would say probably co-closer potentially. I think I think Aroldis Chapman, he's at least in line for saves. I mean, it's just like what's Liam Hendricks going to look like in the spring? He's been out for a while. So yeah, I mean, neither of them have been bad for when they've been on the mound. Like, Liam Hendricks has been amazing for many years. He's been rehabbing though, so he's been out for a while. And Aroldis Chapman has been solid for when he's been on the mound, and he actually his longevity has been pretty good. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind either of them. I don't think there's going to be one set closer though, like out of like for the whole year if they're both healthy. Maybe. I guess it depends on if like one stumbles and the other one takes the job, but I think as of right now I would be drafting them as co-closers.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to approach it, because I don't think either of them is necessarily locked in, because they're just kind of like, okay, are either of these guys gonna be what they could be? Yeah, we'll take a look at that down, and as we get more news and as things kind of go. But we haven't seen Liam Hendricks throw in a year plus, so it's really hard to say one way or the other on him. The Angels, they're really trying to hit the oldest average for their starting roster and rotation ever. They brought in UC Kikuchi, Travis d'Arnaud, Kevin Newman, and Kyle Hendricks. I believe. Yep. I guess we could just talk about this group as a whole. I mean, it's the Angels. I don't want to give too much time to them, Gray. They don't deserve anything.
I mean, there's no reason if you're in LA, there's no reason to retire to Florida. But if the Marlins are going to start taking 35 and older guys, the Angels whole team could be going over to Miami soon. I think I mean, I don't mind Solar as like a late, or not late, but like, like mid-round, like maybe 125 to 150-ish for power if he's there at ADP. Maybe for power, that seems okay. Kikuchi, I don't know. When I was looking at Kikuchi's numbers, I was like really kind of surprised at how mediocre he's been for most of his career, outside of like that short stint in Houston in the second half of last year. Like, for the most part, he's been pretty blah. I was kind of shocked at how sort of whatever he's been. And the Astros are a really good team for coaching up their pitching. So does Kikuchi, and the Angels are a particularly terrible team for coaching
everything.
Yeah, for coaching everything, but especially their pitching. I mean, they haven't had a decent pitcher in a while.
Also, they're hitting.
And also they're hitting. Yeah, I mean, so does Kikuchi remember what the Astros told him and ignore everything the Angels tell him? I don't know, man. I don't think I'm in on Kikuchi this year. The Angels really they ruin everything. So I'm vaguely out on Kikuchi, and the other guys are like I said, Solar is whatever. He is what he is. And then the other guys are just like, who cares?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a wreck there. I mean, maybe Taylor Ward, maybe Rengifo, Nito. I don't know. That's it. I mean, it's a terrible lineup. Like 6 years ago, there would be some hope for this lineup. Not now. D'Arnaud's a fine second catcher, I guess. And that's it. Yep. Moving on, Luis Severino moves over to the A's after, having his, adjustment period year. What do you think about Severino moving?
Actually, we've gone pretty far in. We haven't really discussed the A's and the the A's are going to be playing in Sacramento in the new park. Right, obviously, because it's a different city. But Baltimore is going to be. They moved their fences in, and Tampa is going to be playing in a new park. So three teams with, I believe, all better parks for their hitters and not as good of parks for their pitchers, obviously. So the A's are. My guess is the A's park is going to play higher BABIP because you're going to lose all that ridiculous foul territory. So the A's park should be better for hitting, but not necessarily better for power. The Orioles, their righties took a huge hit a couple of years back when they moved the fences out in left, and now they moved them back to where they were, a little bit higher, but essentially the same. They moved them back in. They moved them back into where, like, when Mountcastle was last with the fences there, he hit 33 homers. So it's good for righties in Baltimore. It's good for everyone with the A's, but not for power. And then the Rays are playing in a stadium that basically is meant to mimic Yankee Stadium. So there's going to be a short porch. So that helps lefties. But Kevin Cash doesn't play lefties. So there's that. Anyway, that was a long way of saying Severino, I would not draft. I would stay away from Severino. I don't trust the A's with starting pitching, and the new park is not going to help them. It may be neutral-ish, but it's not going to help them for sure. So yeah, I would stay away from Severino.
Yeah, the park's going to be a very, very interesting thing there. And yeah, they not exactly great at helping starting pitchers. Not that they've really had anybody come down the line recently that we're overly excited about, other than Mason Miller. Let's move over to Baltimore, where we just got done talking about their fences. They brought in a couple of guys that maybe could take advantage of that, and Tyler O'Neill and Gary Sanchez. Any interest in? I mean, Tyler O'Neill definitely is going to be drafted across the leagues. Do you think this helps or hurts him?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think as a righty, Tyler O'Neill's helped. I think the biggest problem with Tyler O'Neill is how much is he going to play? Does he stay on the field? Because like he'll be playing well, and then like he'll suddenly make a diving catch where he does a somersault and he throws out his back for 3 months. So it's good for him. Like the fences moving in is good for him. He kind of could hit the ball out of anywhere, but it won't hurt, moving the fences in. So yeah, I like Tyler O'Neill. I've liked Tyler O'Neill just about every season, to sometimes good results and sometimes not so good. But yeah, I would say, I would put him down for like 30 homers, maybe 5 steals, and 240 plus average, 235, 240. But yeah, I mean, it's solid if he's going in the right spot for drafts. I don't mind Tyler O'Neill. Gary Sanchez, I have no interest in.
Yeah, nobody really interested there. Desperation catcher on really bad days where there's like 4 games. That's about the only time he's really involved. I will say that the average may drop back down to like 220, 230 on Tyler O'Neill because leaving Boston, we talked about the BABIP and all the help that you get in Boston. But that's my only concern really there. I do believe he can hit it out of pretty much most ballparks. We also talked about the Tampa Bay Stadium, and they signed Danny Jansen. Again, I don't think there's a whole lot here, but anything you want to say?
No, not really. I think he's probably a decent second catcher in 2-catcher leagues, and I don't know. It would have to be a deep league for. It would have to be a deep 1-catcher league to be interested. I think he's probably like maybe 15 homer, 225 hitter, which is it's not great, but for a 2-catcher league, it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, nothing really changes there with Danny Jansen. I mean, that's pretty much all the signings that are meaningful or even somewhat meaningful for us. Still a lot of free agents out there. I don't know if we're going to have another show before the rankings because we'll talk about all these guys as we go through the rankings. But, Roki Sasaki has been posted. That's going to be a really fun one to watch. Alex Bregman's still out there. Jurickson Profar coming off of his great season. He may just do the same thing as last year where nobody wanted him until the season started, and then he just goes and performs. Who knows? Corbin Burns, Teoscar Hernandez, Pete Alonso, Anthony Santander, Jack Flaherty, Christian Walker, Hassan Kim, Gleyber Torres, all the old guys on the mound, Verlander, Kershaw, Scherzer. All those guys are still have to sign. We'll see where they land. Anything that you want to say about any guesses on where those guys? Have you heard anything or anything to say before we get out of here, Gray?
So you want me to end the podcast making a prediction that's going to make me sound like a dope?
Yeah, that's what I like to do, Gray. That's really as much entertainment as I can get on the podcast live. So yeah, that's exactly what I want. So that we can come back in January and be like, you were wrong. Right.
Well, let's just assume I'm wrong on all of them.
Fair enough, Gray. We'll just we'll leave those there. If they all happen like a flurry and it happens in a week, maybe we'll come back on and discuss the remaining free agents. But if not, we'll see you back in January for the top 20 and then the start of the positional rankings. If you want anything or have any specific questions, you can always find us on Twitter. I'm at RazBeaton. Gray owns the @Razzball account. You can find us on youtube.com/Razzball Fantasy. You can go to Gray's articles on Razzball. I will be posting rankings at some point. I don't know when those will be done, but I will be posting rankings. So all that will be coming down the line. Gray, is great talking back into baseball form. And we'll leave it there. Talk to you later, bud.
All right, Leeds.